Matt Ray, he's off the injured reserve, but he's questionable for this episode. You know, he's playing hurt. He's going into the game, right? Like any professional athlete, any professional podcaster, he's going to give it 100%. We're going to see how long he can go fighting a little let's call it like a chest cold flu virus kind of thing. So let's be prepared, everyone. Be prepared to see Matt Ray.
I'd say it's all in my
at
head,
his best, at his
in my throat.
persevere. Let's say he's going to persevere through this episode. Matt, any thoughts before you go into the big game?
Gonna finish this granola bar.
What is your treatment there? What are you eating?
Little tiny kind bar.
Oh, okay. So it's like a snack. It's not. I was gonna say, is it like some type of medical treatment you've got?
No. I need something to cut the coffee. There wasn't any cream, so in the room. So.
It's all right, though. We appreciate it, Matt. You're a professional.
Yeah.
You show up, you meet your obligations. You're gonna make it happen.
Well, and because of the coffee, I haven't been sleeping much, but it has given me a lot of time to work on my Australia presentation, which I gotta tell you, it's coming along well.
This is for those that are not in the know. You're doing a presentation about Australia.
Yeah, we got
to your company. Is that what it is?
Yeah. They were like, hey, anybody want to sign up for a lightning? They said lightning talk, but it's 20 minutes, and they're like, any subject, anything you want. And so, a couple of my coworkers put together presentations and submitted stuff, and I put in Australia, and
just Australia.
All the other ones are like they have little breakout rooms. I have everyone to myself. I've got the whole company.
But now wait a minute.
Watch me talk about Australia for 20 minutes.
Was this what you wanted? Or is did you want the full, this is a weird thing when you make a lightning presentation, sometimes you're like, it's like a comic. I'm working out stuff and I want to be in the basement. I want to be with a real small audience. I got to work it out. And then sometimes you're like, I'm headlining. This is like a headliner presentation. This
is the headliner. All the little stories I've told on the podcast over the years, a lot of them are making appearances, right? We've got the
tradies. I hope tradies gets in there.
Well, that's the last section is culture. And so, yes, Tradies is going to get a slide. We've got Matt and the Huntsman spiders in his house. We've got the snake in the Airbnb. We've got crocodiles. We've got various birds, bats. Things that have all made appearances over the years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a chance for me to dump out the photo album and make people look at my slides.
Your pictures. And, I'm sure you have lots of cool nature pictures, right? Because you've been all over Australia. Seems like you're always posting a picture of from some exotic look. At least to me, some exotic looking area.
It's all exotic. And like any conversation I have with a new coworker is always like, tell me about Australia. And so this is my chance to now I don't have to have that conversation 60 times. I can just be like, look, this is me.
Here it is. Oh, here it is. So in the end, it's about you. I like this. This is
Isn't
the best
that how the
kind
world works?
One, you're 100% correct. I could not agree with you more. But two, I didn't make the immediate connection. You're pointing out the value. Now I get it. You're like, this is sort of like you collectively doing the small talk presentation for the entire company one time. You're gonna your mass broadcast your small talk, and then next time you could either have a different small talk conversation, or you can just jump right in. They'll be like, "Oh, that's the guy from Australia. He has big bugs in his house."
I can give it again. I can give it again with all new anecdotes. Each slide is just. I'm going with the Andrew cliche of here's a photo, barely any text, and I'm just gonna I've got a few speaker notes for myself. But it's not text, it's photos.
I like it. Oh, well, I look forward to it. I don't know. I feel like, we've never really done just a pure streaming thing, but maybe I'm going to add this to the list of things we're going to say and not do. One day, maybe we'll have you just come on. You can give the presentation here on the YouTube. Because then the
prezzo.
The prezzo. Oh, there you go. The prezzo. I was going to say, because maybe if you did it, maybe that's your ultimate. So maybe I misspoke. Maybe what's happening here is you're workshopping it with your company. When you get it all ready to go, we live broadcast this thing on YouTube. And now you never have to have the small talk conversation again. Because you just walk over to people, you watch my YouTube. This is everything you need to know. Come back after you've watched the YouTube video.
Well, definitely like a comic. I'm going to be workshopping it, and we'll see what lands, what doesn't. I'll be borrowing content from other folks. It's all coming together. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. You ready to get well, let's see. Yeah, I guess first finish coughing, step one.
Yeah.
And then hold on, I didn't pull up the chat. I was about to
Yeah.
say
Let
I'm
me
ready,
let me
but I'm
hop on
not.
Twitch.
I'm not ready. I did put it in the Twitter, or not the Twitter, the Slack.
Yep.
I keep thinking like I like there's all these things you have to do to get your machine set up. And I was like, maybe this is the use for that Stream Deck thing. I was like, maybe I need to get one of those, because
Push all the buttons and it just runs a bunch of macros
and it just
and
works.
stuff.
Because at first I was like, who would need that? And then I'm like, I'm always like trying to get like the windows in the right place. And I don't know. It's always kind of different. I never really have it. I've not automated it. It's like, this is like a bad pipeline setup. It's like, it's always kind of unique. It's always a little bit different. Okay, let me go to the stream manager.
Let me
Finding
find
it.
Notes for this present.
All right, now we're on here. Pop out the chat. Lost it. Okay. All right. Now I think I'm ready.
Oh, snakes, spiders. Where? I'm looking for my show notes.
Need me to send you the link? Have I hidden it from you?
I had it open. No, where did it go?
On forever.
Because I went in and added my text earlier. Went up for like 4 hours, so it's a bad idea.
There you go.
Yeah, send me the link. Yeah,
it's in the Restream chat.
Okay. Which is this browser? Which is there? Oh, don't open it.
This may be a tough time for the streamers. We did kind of like cut into prime time meeting time, but oh well.
We're missing out on the APAC contingent. I always had a good
crew. Yeah, it's way too late or early, depending on how you look at the calendar, the clock.
It's too early for the APAC crew.
All right, hey, we can either talk about international travel if you've got some stories, or we can dive right into this free coffee segment as our cold open. Which thing do you want to? Which thing do you want to go with? I think we always have thoughts on either subject.
Yeah. My travel, I've forgotten how to travel.
You tell me. You lead me. Which thing is more interesting for you to talk about?
I'm trying to think of anything actually interesting happened in my travel, just besides too much of it. I don't really know about the free coffee stuff either, though. I just made a joke about cocaine.
Oh, I've got thoughts. on that.
Okay.
We can have a short conversation about that if you want.
All right.
You ready?
Let's talk about that. Wait. What about the other topics and stuff? Oracle. I read that and I still didn't buy it.
That's the segment. That's what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
I think that's what we need to figure out. And then
yeah,
you posted
that. I posted the open source alternative thing. That was.
I thought I had some interesting thoughts on that.
Yeah. Of course I have opinions on NFT bullshit. iOS 16, whatever. Google Killer Pixel Books.
I figured that's just like I feel like that's like just me throwing you an alley oop. I'm like, I'm just gonna throw this up. Matt's gonna he's gonna do a 360 dunk. Like I just feel like every time we get on this subject, I just feel like, oh, here, I'm stirred up again. Let's see what he does this time. Maybe he'll do a flip.
So. Yeah, I'm just flipping through the other things. Are there anything interesting? Not really. Rest Invest. Does that have to do with free coffee?
Yeah, maybe we'll bring it up in that. Well, maybe we can talk about that too.
Oh, big head. Okay, let me open this Goldman Sachs article. Coffee's so cheap though. That's stupid. The article this is behind a paywall.
Mm-hmm.
I can't.
Matt, you don't need to. You're prepared for the free coffee thing. You ready? You ready to get going? I'll just get it going here.
Okay.
there's no homework on that one.
There's no homework.
There's very little homework on that, at least on that subject. Everything else we need you to do homework on, but that one I feel like we're good.
All right, I'm ready to rail against the missing coffee.
Okay, here we go. So tell me, I'll make a quick note of the timestamp.
Now, do you want me to do audio hijack? I've kind of lapsed from doing that.
No, I think I've got enough.
Because Restream does it all, right?
Yeah, and I've got local recordings here, and it's only 2 of us today, so I don't I'll have the audios on 2 tracks, almost, unless 3 things fail. I should have us on 2 tracks. So
then it just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, then you're right. Then it's like, well, this episode wasn't good. The podcast gods rejected it. So, all right. So let's see here. 10 minutes. All right, here we go.
Now, where's my mute button? I got to get used to M. M is mute.
Right.
Yep. Okay, I'm ready to mute myself.
Test it.
When I
Test
start
it real quick. All right.
I'm caught.
Good work on the mute button there.
Yeah.
All right, you're off mute now, right?
Yes.
That would be good if they would. In this case, it would be great if they actually showed it. I guess it wouldn't be good for the stream. It'd be good for
I just noticed.
For the secret view, would be like, oh, he's on mute, so like don't go to him now, right? Or like give him a heads up if he's anyway.
Oh crap.
We'll save that for another.
The full screen, you can't see the mute button anymore. That seems like a UX or UI problem.
That's true. All right, here we go. Ready? Whoops.
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Well, bad news out of New York. Goldman Sachs is cutting free coffee as corporate America reels in pandemic perks with workers returning to the office. So, Matt, as you probably have been following closely, Labor Day weekend marked the official back to the office for Goldman Sachs, like back in the office. And what did they find? They found that the free coffee cart, which usually sits in the lobby of the 200 West Street office, missing. So, as we've talked about, I think probably extensively on the show, the perks versus entitlements in corporate America is a subject that is very, very touchy. Like type of anything that is provided free first as a perk becomes an entitlement, and then eventually becomes something people complain about, either because it's not good enough or that it went away. So on the Goldman Sachs thing, right? So and they go on in this article to explain that the free coffee was, I guess, a pandemic incentive. They were trying to get people back into the office.
So it wasn't there like pre-COVID?
As far as I can tell, doing my deep research, from what I could tell, and again, this is the free coffee.
Could you read past the 3 paragraphs? Because the paywall.
I did. I mean, I read most of it. I think I got a lot of it. So the part I don't know though is because there goes on like a junior banker goes in there to say, well, this is the typical response. He's like, well, I'm sure the free coffee in the partner area, and I guess they have like a partner dining room. And he's like, I'm sure that's in the free coffee in that area, it's still free. So lots of things to dissect here. First of all, and this came up a little bit in the Slack, like coffee. I think coffee is like one of these things that rides the line, right? Like some people would argue it's absolutely just an entitlement. Like if you're in a corporate workplace, you should be provided free coffee, not necessarily good coffee. That's, Cote's not here to regale us with, all the types of coffee someone needs to have. But like, there's usually like something, right? Some kind of like basic coffee, right? I feel like, but now other people go the other way and say like, there are some famous companies that actually go so far as to say that the fact that they don't have like the free coffee is a sign, it's part of the culture, right? The culture is like, we're cost cutting. We don't have that stuff. It's a waste of time. So let me start with the most basic question. Where do you come down on this? Like coffee is a perk versus like coffee is kind of to be expected?
Well, I definitely, I stand with the suppressed workers of Goldman Sachs.
The junior bankers, to be clear. That's who you're aligning yourself with.
This is a line in the sand that, this cannot be tolerated. I mean, if you are an iBanker at Goldman Sachs listening to this, I suggest you leave.
This is it. This is the moment.
This is where you make your stand.
The 100-hour work weeks are fine. The mandatory Excel, the endless updating of PowerPoint slides, that's all fine. you know. But we at this point, this is the thing that finally it's like it's time to shut down Goldman Sachs. So
Yes,
it's
pretty
time just
much.
to stream
Yes.
out of it.
This is the Popeye moment of, I've had all I can have and I can't have this no more or whatever. I mean,
I'm taking my
this
spinach. I'm leaving.
yes, they took away your spinach. I mean, how are people supposed to function under these sorts of conditions? But seriously though, this is a low cost perk that it seems dumb. I mean, because obviously, Goldman Sachs, they're not exactly hurting. Everything I've seen financially says, that they're continuing to up. It doesn't matter if the economy goes up or down. Everyone who's getting free coffee is making money, and that just it seems like they could give a little something back to the working class there. So I really think it seems short-sighted, right?
I agree, and it seems like if there's a for the junior bankers that are not leaving, because we've already seen the junior bankers really demonstrate some interesting PowerPoints. I think they did something about like working too hard, right? And that was sort of put out there. Too many hours. I thought that was really good. So if somebody is really kind of has maybe like a subversive, but they want to stay at Goldman Sachs, what they will do is put together a full business case, including an ROI projections about the with and without free coffee model, right? So that would be a full-on Excel model. I'd like to see it because I think it's pretty clear, as you said, and this is why I think this is so interesting, especially Goldman Sachs. It's like it really doesn't matter either way. I don't think it's not going to have any effect on Goldman Sachs's bottom line, whether or not they have free coffee. It's just going to annoy people that it was taken away. So you should have thought about that before you add it. We'll get to that in a second. Like, think about when you add perks, right? Like
Yeah,
what's going to
yeah.
happen. And then more importantly, and I guess this is the other thing, is like if it really had something to do with money, if they were like, wow, you have to really do it, they could probably easily find, I don't know, a few thousand vendors who would love to, if you will, sponsor the free coffee in the lobby for whatever, a month, a year, whatever, right? Think about how many people are trying to get in front of Goldman Sachs
Yeah.
every day, right? And it
Brought
was
brought
just
to you
like,
by hedge fund, or brought to you
I
by,
mean, brought to you by
some
like 1,000 different potential companies, whether it be financial
exactly.
services or software companies. Like everyone is trying to sell this Goldman Sachs. So
Yeah. This
that to me
this
is the
is
other
this is
thing.
like, and it's cheaper than sponsoring a coffee booth at reInvent, right?
Right. And
I
you'd get
mean,
like, think about the ROI you would get out of it too. It's like they'd see it every day, right? Like the bankers would literally see it every day. And because they're kind of annoyed that especially and I think this would be another very enterprising thing. If you were just any company that wanted to sell Goldman Sachs, like you would immediately walk in and be like, I want to pay for the entire year. I just want to
no,
put,
no,
all I
no.
want you to do is put a little sign next
I'm
to it that
gonna one
says,
up you. I'm gonna
okay,
one up you here. I'm gonna solve the problem for journalism.
okay.
Fortune magazine should sponsor that booth.
Oh,
And
I like it.
and they put like a little sign that says, have a hot tip. and
That
and
would,
and do you know how fast? I mean, I don't know if Fortune is known for their muckraking, but Economist or some magazine that has or newspaper, right? You get some Washington Post in there, you get some economic journalists in there, and you're like, look, hey, free coffee. Hey, as long as you're having a coffee, stop and chat with our reporters.
I love your thought
Solves
there.
solves
I
all
just
the
want,
problems.
I
You're
want
you're
to
gonna
build on
get
a little
you're
bit.
gonna get Pulitzers and free coffee.
I want to build on it because I think I love it. I love everything about it. I would say I think if there's ever a time for another journalistic entity to do this, I think it's Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg task.
Yes, yes,
Bloomberg
that's what
Media.
I was looking for.
You know what I mean? And then you just literally put Matt Levine's email address at the bottom and be like, just read the newsletter and email Matt Levine crazy stories. That would be fantastic.
Exactly,
But
right?
let me tell you this, Matt. I know how to defeat this. I've already defeated Goldman Sachs.
You give them back their
I
coffee.
did. No, I beat Goldman Sachs. I thought years in advance, years of training. I'm prepared because I could walk in Goldman Sachs. You know why? I don't drink coffee. Okay. All right. There we go. That's the coffee segment. Good job, Matt. You made it through. No
Teleport
coughing.
goes here, and I need to check teleport back out.
Great. Everyone needs to try teleport, and more importantly, you made it. You didn't cough. So I think good for you. You did a good job on the mute button there. So
I've got the cough drop working. The coffee's I've consumed. Now I can work on the cough drop.
Yeah, nice. Keep it up, man. Keep it. You're doing well. You're gonna make it. You're gonna make it. I feel like I'm like the coach on the sideline. Do you need
Yes.
another shot? Do you need another painkiller? You're almost
Yeah.
there, Matt. You can do it. We need you in there. We need you in the game.
What kind of injections do they give the football players on the sidelines?
Oof, I don't know. That's gonna be a whole nother podcast. I don't even think we want to know. I think
Yeah, they go into the little covered booth on the sidelines, and they're like horse tranquilizers and shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. Now you're gonna make it hard for me to watch football. I can't I can't know too much about football and the real stuff because then I just uh, mixed
Well,
feelings.
I mean,
And I watch all, of course.
being a fan of college football means you are in a continual state of disbelief about, the state of professional athletes and the ruinous effects on higher education. But hey, I love me some college football.
I mean, everything you said is true, and then I
Yes,
still watch. Like I
I
don't know
can
what to
hold
say.
that.
I'm like,
Yes, I can hold that in my head.
I don't know what. I know I'm not a good person, but I'm still watching. Uh, let me just get
Mm,
let me just get up these Oracle things, right? All right, you ready? We'll talk some Oracle. Okay.
Oracle.
Oh, here we go.
Yes.
All right, Matt. Well, we had some earning news here. Oracle has reported their latest earnings, and they are making what I'm going to call it a PR push because we'll maybe look in the numbers in a second. It feels like Oracle has been making a strong push to be considered the third largest cloud vendor. So basically, I think most people consider AWS far and away the lead, Microsoft solid number two. Most of the time, GCP is listed three. We know about Alibaba, but we're all kind of confused by that one. So I always think we put that to the side. So it feels like the big PR push, because I see this released a lot, is that Oracle is making the push to say that they are basically the third one, essentially displacing GCP, which of course, remember Thomas Kurian came from Oracle.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like I feel like that's like a book that needs to be read, like or written. Like there seems
Yeah.
to be
Not read, just written.
just written. Yeah, we won't read it. It needs to be written and then summarized for me because I don't know if I'll make it
Yes.
through that one. But it does. It seems interesting. So maybe there's just some bad blood in general there. I don't know exactly what went down.
Hopefully.
Maybe uh, but in the press this week, I basically the last earnings Oracle basically said would come out and they would essentially be on the same type of run rate or a little bit bigger than GCP. And it looks like from what it's very difficult. Like the cloud earnings for large companies, this is our constant refrain about Microsoft. It's just complicated. But it says if we add it up here, if we say their Q1 cloud infrastructure revenue, so I think that's IaaS. So it's just under $1 billion, so 900 million. So it's up 52%,
That's
and up
respectable. Yeah.
58% in constant currency. I don't know. Someone will have to explain exactly how you calculate constant currency. Read Matt Levine's newsletter. I'm sure he's into that. And then the other part that they break out that I think they kind of put as part of cloud is their Q1 cloud application, which they say is quote unquote SaaS revenue, is up 33% in US dollars. And it looked like that was, it was up 43%. And that is coming in around $2.7 billion. So I don't know if we add that up, we're looking at like around a $4 billion, run rate for the quarter of all the cloud stuff. And then there's a bunch of Larry Ellison quotes in here, right? And this is why I'm always thinking about, like, I don't know, like in this case, it actually seems like Larry Ellison does write these, right? But they're kind of his typical.
Well, his hands are definitely involved, right? He's like, make sure I get at least a quote per paragraph.
Yeah, and he's basically just saying that, I think of one thing, he's taking on good PR, taking on the leader. He says, quote unquote, he's talking to a lot of AWS customers. And it's like, of course, right? Like, what does that mean? I'm sure everybody is to some extent. And then more importantly, it feels like they're trying to make the push that they're going to be a $20 billion run rate on an annualized basis in cloud going forward, which I think would put them right there, in the GCP. Certainly maybe not above the GCP, but certainly right there with them, right? They can make the argument. So I guess my question is, like, what I think is interesting about this is, and I started this whole, segment talking about, like, it seemed like a PR strategy, because the thing I haven't noticed is I don't feel like I've suddenly heard about Oracle being talked about a lot more. Like, I don't feel
No.
like, day-to-day people moving to the cloud, just like conversations with friends and people in the industry. I don't feel like, because normally you hear it kind of bubble up, like, oh, people will be like, I was kind of skeptical about this, but I've been using it now and I really like it. And you kind of slowly kind of see it percolate. And then eventually it starts to show up in the numbers. So wanted to get your thoughts, Matt. Like, one, are you seeing Oracle in the industry? And two, is this just a PR push or something really happening here?
I call shenanigans. The key there is they're including Cerner. And so they go out and acquire Cerner for $28 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that acquisition, they now get to tack an extra 1.4 billion from Cerner onto their revenue for the quarter. And so it's like, I previously have worked with Cerner customers who use Cerner, and I can assure you that Cerner is not a public cloud. I mean, it is a SaaS offering, but I mean, that is so specialized, right? And so that would be like, if I'm trying to think of,
Like a Salesforce, it'd be like
so
Salesforce coming out and
no, no,
saying
no,
like,
no. This would be
mhm.
like Microsoft buying Canva and like rolling Canva into their cloud business and saying, well, oh, well, all these designers are now part of it, or Adobe, right? So if Google goes and buys Adobe, does Adobe immediately count as cloud revenue? I mean, yes, it's a SaaS, but do you really think of Adobe as a cloud offering? I mean, to me, maybe I'm trapped in, like, the last decade where I'm still thinking about cloud as general services available, and somewhere there's this mythical line, or this fuzzy line of like, when does it become too specialized to count as cloud? And it's just like, this is a very specific offering that is a SaaS, right? And just because y'all talked about it last week, you're like, just because it's a SaaS doesn't mean it's cloud, right? Or it's hard to like compare SaaSes to SaaSes. But if Oracle goes and buys 10 more SaaSes in various industries and just rolls them into their cloud, they can keep goosing this number up. So is that what's happening here?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's probably the best explanation. And of course, like, to be fair too, like Microsoft does some of this too. They sort of take
Oh
some of
yeah,
their
totally.
office stuff, and that's
I
why
mean,
we're
well,
always
or GitHub
we
or LinkedIn or
right. But I think we also know that, like, while we know that sort of like that some of that financial what do you call it, shenanigans is going on in Microsoft, we also kind of know that, like, no, plenty of people are using Azure. Like, we know, like, we talk to people,
yes.
we see it. And so maybe we could debate, like, are they using it this much or this much? And I do think you're right here. And I think maybe the way that we should be thinking about this, and Oracle did break out infrastructure as a service, is like, what's really interesting from the market we're talking about is we really would like to know your storage, your compute, your networking, and maybe your databases. Database is always a little questionable, but really that kind of collection is like, that's at least my theory, and I think most people would agree with that, is like the bulk of the revenue of AWS and Azure and GCP, I think, is there, right? And more
Hmm.
importantly, that customer base is what then grows in to use the other services on top, right? The, if
I,
you will, the AI
I mean,
and things
because
like that.
because because Microsoft, like, no, set me straight. They break out the Office 360, 365 stuff, right? That's not cloud. I mean, because
Right.
we're starting to get into that kind of specialized offerings where it's like, well, sure, I guess it happens to run on Azure and you offer it as a SaaS, but to me that is not the same game.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I don't know. Does Google break out
I think they do. They mostly
Gmail?
do, but I think they have their G Suite is also in there.
Is
So I
is
think there are
YouTube
some,
in GCP?
no. YouTube is
See, I
definitely
mean,
not.
how different is YouTube from Cerner?
Listen, no argument here, but YouTube is just a gigantic business on itself that
Yeah,
is like,
right. Well,
that's probably worth. And I think that's what I guess that's what, I mean, that's always the implicit thing is like, if you're not willing, and I guess AWS for a long, to be fair, AWS did this for a long time. They kind of hid the AWS revenue inside like the big Amazon, the retail business, right? And then they
yeah.
finally, I think they got to
Now
some
they
number.
had
I'm
the
sure
gift shop in the data center. Yeah.
right. Well, also too, once it becomes so strong, it's better to say, like, you're always talking from strength. Like, you're always reporting earnings that give you the strongest position. So I can't remember what it was. I think it was maybe like a $10 billion business. Like, when it was clear when AWS got to some marker, they're like, okay, we're now going to break it out, right? Because they basically get a higher multiple on their stock. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
in the case of, you know, Oracle, IBM has played this game a lot, right? Google, like they want that number to be big, but they know it's not on its own. It's not big enough, right? So they're always trying to like keep it a little bit opaque. Like we're always kind of guessing. But the one I'm least concerned about is Azure, because I think like I just know, like I feel like the industry, we have good line of sight. Like we know what's going, like we know good stuff is happening there. Where the Oracle one, I'm like, especially when you come out this way, I'm like, shenanigans is the right phrase. I'm like, I don't know. Could be a lot of
especially
shenanigans going
because
on here.
they really are trying to stick it to Korean, right? They're trying to like, oh, GCP, you're slipping. So Google will go buy Spotify and roll that into their GCP numbers to get ahead for the quarter, right? I mean, that's the game you can play here.
But then they would kill off Spotify eventually, so that would be sad
well,
for
then they'd lose
all the
their
Spotify
reference
users.
Make them all use Gtalk and oh dear.
Oh, that would in itself be funny. Okay, so I think what we're gonna do here is I think we're on this Oracle earnings. We're gonna put like a wait and see on this. It's like, okay, we're seeing a lot of PR push, right? We will continue to watch the numbers. I think your original thing here is what we really want to watch, because we're reporting it, is infrastructure as a service revenue. That number seems as clean as we're going to get.
Cerner's going to do healthy business. There's no doubt about
absolutely.
that. Right.
And really, I think maybe that's the question. Is like, I think Oracle can play a different game. And probably if I was in the meeting, I'd be like, why don't we just roll up all these enterprise SaaS applications and continually to say, it's like, hey, we provide all the infrastructure services you need.
I mean, right? NetSuite and various other, sorts of enterprise-y SaaSes. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, like,
it's clear that Larry Ellison doesn't want that. Like he wants to be like, he wants it all. And I guess that's probably what's made him successful. And it's probably also what's frustrating.
Korean.
Yeah. Although that would be interesting. I would like to know that would be a fun, like to like be in a room with those two, or like maybe just talking over like a beer or whatever, having dinner. Like, I wonder how those conversations went before he left. It'll be fun to watch. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead. We'll put a wait and see on the Oracle stuff. I'm interested, I would say. I'm curious to see if it continues to grow. Because, like, I don't know, more alternatives are always good, especially if they're, better, faster, cheaper. We always want to see that in
well,
in the market. I don't know if a lot of people say Oracle is better, faster, cheaper. I don't know if gets said a lot. I think the cheaper part is probably not often used, but we'll see. All right, but in other news, but staying on our coffee theme for this episode, is Starbucks has now detailed that they're going to move to a blockchain-based loyalty platform and NFT community. And what I think is great about this initiative is that, here's the quote: "It happens to be built on blockchain and Web3 technologies, but the customer, to be honest, may very well not even know what they're doing is interacting with blockchain technology. It's just the enabler," goes on to say the Starbucks person that was part of this project. So my question then is like, what is the point? Isn't the entire point of like when you're on the blockchain is that like, hey, it's all open, anyone can communicate with it.
CrossFit. You got to let everybody know you're on the blockchain.
Right. But also too, like, isn't that the entire purpose is it's like, hey, there won't be any transaction fees. Everything's going to be in the open. The fact that like you want your customers to know, because then they in theory will know that like, oh, like this is 100% open. Like I'm not locked into like some specific system. I can quote unquote see all the transactions. So it seems like they have done here is they've just implemented a distributed database on the blockchain for what I can tell, for no reason, because they don't even want the end customer to know that they're using the blockchain. So I leave it to you, Matt, to explain to me, what is the value if the customer doesn't even know that they're on this open platform?
I nearly sprained my eyes rolling them so hard on this. It was first off, the concept that there's a Starbucks community. I mean, this is like saying there's a crackhead community. I mean, it's people who drink coffee. I mean, yes, people like, I'm sure there's TikToks about, your fancy drinks and whatnot, but community is quite the stretch. I mean, I don't think people like band together and form a community. I mean, this is like a new back end for your loyalty program. And, all I can figure is they must be an investor in this Web3 company or something, because it just seems kind of.
Well, did you read the section about NFTs? Because I have read this a couple times and I am so confused as to like, what NFT, because you can't buy them. They said they were really clear. So they were clearly trying to stay away from the, I don't know, the outright weird fraudness of just like, you buy a picture of a pixel map and then somehow it makes you money. So I think to their credit, I guess, and I'll use that generously here, they're not doing that. But then they just sort of like allude to like there will be NFTs. You can get NFTs. Somehow they'll be in the app, I guess. But like completely confused as to like what you would do with them or why you would get them. Did you have any other take on that? Did I miss anything?
Well, you did miss the line. A set of limited edition NFTs will be available to purchase through the Starbucks Odyssey app. And so I'm like, seriously,
I don't
who?
know, it's just one of the strangest thing. Now I will say this again, not a coffee drinker here, as I've already stated on
No,
the show. But what I
they
have been
have tea.
told,
It doesn't matter.
it's true. But what I've been told that people really like the Starbucks app, that they like getting the stars or
It's
whatever,
fine.
and
Sure.
that
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
it,
I understand the gamification angle, right? If you level up, you start getting discounts, whatever. But NFTs?
So there's just, I think we're in agreement here. There's absolutely no reason this should be able to done. And I do think maybe this is digital transformation gone wrong. It seems like they're taking something that people really like, that my understanding that people use it. One, they love the rewards. They like the fact that it's easy to order. It's easy to pay. It's all like integrated in the app. There is some gamification, getting the stars. All of that seems great. The fact that like, and I guess this is what I always wonder is like, I wonder how, in the meeting, like how did this like, this deserves its own kind of digital transformation gone wrong. Like, how exactly, what was the PowerPoint? What was the pitch? And how did someone decide, yep, this is exactly what we want to spend money on? I don't, that part to me completely, because are you a Starbucks user? You're a coffee drinker. Do you use the app at all? Have you tried it out?
I do have it installed. I got a gift card. Periodically, like, Christmas, birthdays, or whatever, someone will give me a Starbucks gift card. I've been carrying $50 to credit for 6 years.
Now, of course,
because because as we've discussed, I don't go to Starbucks in Australia, and so it's really only when I'm traveling in the U.S. most likely, and when it's not on the company time, right? So I think I bought some Starbucks in the Honolulu airport this year.
it's clear you don't care. And again, like we've gone over it, Australians, there's a whole different you're in your case, you wouldn't even if Starbucks was the free coffee. The people in Australia, as we've covered before, would not drink this. It's not good coffee to
Well, no, no,
Australians,
no, no,
correct?
no. Free is a different thing, right?
Okay,
You
so
can totally
good.
get
All
me
right.
to rat out Goldman Sachs if you're giving me free Starbucks. I'm ready.
You're back in. I love it. I love it.
I'm
You're
back in.
walking out, and then they're giving out Starbucks gift cards. You're like, all right, I take it back. I'm going back to work. I'm okay now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we checked in on that. So I don't. Good luck, Starbucks people, and maybe somebody. I'm sure there's plenty of people that use the app that like it. So if somebody, one of the listeners, gets an NFT, wants to share it with us, explain why it's good, wants to do anything with Starbucks, we want to hear about it. Send us an email, find us in the Slack, explain it to us, because I frankly, I don't get it. I don't understand it at all. Now, another thing that came up this week, Matt, I thought was interesting. This is something you actually found. It was an article written here, and the headline is time till open source alternative. So why don't you give us kind of a quick overview? What did the author kind of write up, and like why is this interesting to us?
This is interesting because the author kind of he dug into GitHub and kind of tried to date how fast the not necessarily completely viable, but open source alternatives to commercial offerings appeared. So, if you were to compare, say, MySQL to Oracle, or just various streaming services to
And he's very
commercial
clear. He's
offering.
trying to do direct comparison. So like,
Yeah,
FTP
yeah. I mean, there's a
Explorer to
nice.
FileZilla, BitKeeper to Git. There's a bunch of them on here.
Yeah, yeah. You got your Netscape Navigator to Firefox. One Password to Bitwarden, which is, it's actually a pretty good comparison, right? I mean, he tries to track them down with dates, and the CSV is there, so you can sort and filter however you like. And so I definitely appreciate it, and it's kind of beating a drum that we've said all along is Um, Open source is not a business model, but it is a strategy that you can employ um, to use against your competition. And to me, this is like, hey, if you don't do, if you don't do open source, there is, the clock is ticking. There will be an open source alternative to what you're doing. It might not be as good, but it might be good enough for a lot of users. And to me, that's the big takeaway is when you think about, your new enterprise product or whatever, think that, something, if it's useful, if it's useful, and the price is not low enough, or even if it is low, eventually someone will be like, I could do that.
Well, what's interesting, I think we'll dig into the numbers a little bit here, is that so he breaks down basically the time period, then he gives it by decades. So in the 80s, it was, 2,192 days between the commercial product coming out and then the open source alternative. And then in the 90s, that drops to 1,725 days. And in the 2000s, it's 1,094. And then in 2010s, I don't know. It's kind of it gets a lot slower, but there's less things. So that's kind of a weird sample size. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, so what's interesting is like clearly there's some velocity, like the idea that something comes out and then some group then decides to build an open source alternative, like that is clear, that trend is clearly increased, right? I think that is very, so I think we can clearly say, in our working lifetimes that's become very common. But I was thinking about it, it's like, I don't know, does it really mean anything, I guess, in the sense of like, is it just sort of like another indicator of a mature market, right? So if something sits out there for long enough, for let's say 1,000 days, which is like whatever 3+ years, and it gets a large enough commercial user base that
yeah,
like
yeah.
eventually that'll be a signal to some group of people that are probably involved in that commercial product in one way or another to say, hey, actually, it does make sense for us to spend our time and our efforts, and there's enough interest to build an open source, competitor, or just like alternative. I shouldn't even say competitor, just an alternative to it. And so in that case, it's sort of like interesting, but maybe not that important, right? It's just another kind of signal that your market is real, your market is mature, you've achieved product market fit. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
I it's definitely a signal that you've arrived. Is that somebody has decided that they needed an alternative to you, and and it's potentially, I'm not going to oversimplify and say it's always price based, but because there's definitely your free software contingent, but there's also the hobbyist who's like I could do that, and and as open source and Linux and the like have matured, some of these, not off the list on here. There's not too many of them, but there are a lot of open source alternatives that have displaced the original products. All right. I mean, I don't think I think it's probably a safe bet to say that more people are using Git and and Subversion and CVS than any commercial alternatives. And of course, with Git, they're probably still using GitHub, but GitLab is very viable. And and there are other alternatives. And if you look at things like text editors, right? The open source ones have won, for whatever. And I'm sure the IntelliJ folks will tell me this or that, but I like VS Code is ostensibly open source, and the web browsers are all open source, and so a lot of these do eventually outpace the things that they were built against. Um, so it's just kind of a warning shot to if you're going to succeed, you need to keep this on your radar. And a lot of people have just this is part of their business model, is open source as a strategic defense.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And I think, the mixture, I guess maybe that would be the third or fourth, I don't know what the fifth column they could add here potentially would be, where is adoption? Like where has the open source product kind of, if you will, subsumed the original? And I think in a few cases it's clear. But now he he also goes ahead and mixes in a lot of like kind of the, I don't know, popular online services like Twitter, YouTube, and others in here. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like in that case it's like Twitter or YouTube, the fact that they're open source alternatives is almost kind of irrelevant, right? Because like what matters there is the community, the fact that they have large communities of users that and they're using them. It doesn't matter. I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem to have any like kind of effect on, if you will, actually using the product. Like people don't really like no one. I actually never even heard of like PeerTube. I've never heard of a bunch of these
Yeah,
competitors.
yeah.
So that part, I feel like you can almost throw that out as a, I don't know, kind of like an unnecessary category, right? It's like if you don't bring the community, then it kind of doesn't matter the software exists. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, yes, there are a bunch of things on here that maybe they're too niche, right? Maybe it's just they're or it's hard to do. It's hard to do an open source community. I mean, uh, Mastodon is is not that popular yet. There's an open source alternative to that. There are Twitter alternatives to that are out there, but it's like, yeah, but we're all going to kind of go back to it. But OBS, or I guess Mastodon is open source. I was thinking of Discord, but
Right.
like OBS has displaced the alternatives. The Atom, gave way to VS Code, but it's open source, supplying an open source now, and so yeah, I think that you know you can't say it's going to be 100% open source, but you can say that if you don't feel like paying for software, you can get pretty far.
You can, and I do think a lot of the times people don't think of it this way. I think of it sometimes though as a gateway to a lot of these other products is the open source alternative, because sometimes like you just want to like learn how to like, I don't know, do something, use something, and then it becomes apparent to you while you would want to pay for something. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I find like, I don't know, like reporting is a good example of that. I feel like hey, you can do a lot of stuff with free reporting tools, but there's this moment where it's like, oh man, especially if this data is really valuable, and this is, I'm sure, where the snowflakes and all the other, it's like, yeah, it actually does make sense to pay for it. So I don't know. I think it's kind of like we always say before. It's not just open source alone isn't a business model, but I think using it as both market research and also seeing where open source alternatives, if you will, overtake the commercial offerings is very interesting. I think from a business standpoint, like you're going to learn a lot from that. So interesting there. So, all
It's a good
right, Matt.
article.
Well, so
It's fun to
yeah,
read.
it's,
Yeah.
and I think, hopefully, maybe he'll continue to do some analysis, because I think that next step, because he says it in there, he's sort of like, this is just measuring time to when it appears, not time to adoption or broad adoption. So maybe that'll be the next article that hopefully they'll write, do all the work, and then we'll talk about it. Cause that's that's what we want to do. We don't want
Yes.
to do all the analysis
Write,
ourselves.
write, write your book, do your research papers, and we'll talk about it for 15 minutes.
That's right. All right, Matt. Well, listen, this is a topic just for you. We'll talk about it briefly. I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about maybe you never had a Pixel book. I don't know. Didn't really know much about it, but Google canceled its next Pixel book, and I guess they shut down the team that's working on it. So, you're our thing. I feel like a Pixel book may be in your wheelhouse a little bit. Like, did you actually ever use a Pixel book? Had you actually ever heard of it? Will we miss it in any way?
I never owned a Pixel book. I did look at them, right? Because the fact that you could get decent-ish, laptop hardware and jailbreak it. So I didn't really
Mhm.
want a Pixel book. I wanted just a real thin client laptop. But
Sure.
I kind of got there with running Linux on MacBook Airs. But yeah, I mean my son had a Chromebook.
Right.
So but it was from
And to be
Samsung,
clear, the Chromebook,
right?
I think, is fine. I don't think the Chromebook is that. I'm sure that's a different division. I feel like the Chromebook's very successful. So this is
Well,
just a Pixel book.
but isn't the Pixelbook Google's hardware implementation of the Chromebook?
Listen, you're gonna ask hard questions now that I'm not prepared for. I don't know. I don't know. I just know, like, I see the Chromebooks all over school, so I'm just like, I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah,
the
yeah.
Chromebook's doing well. I don't feel like no one that people are gonna to kill that one off, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, and I think it's more along the lines of the way, like, didn't Google stop making Pixel phones? Or, they haven't manufactured their own for a while. They've, like, let other vendors do the hardware, and they slap their label on it as the reference implementation, and I think that's kinda what's happening here is the Pixelbook is they'll give way to Lenovo or Samsung or what have you.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know. I can't say. I just sort of didn't hear from you. Like, I don't know. It's like maybe Matt will miss the Pixel book, but I don't know. I guess we kid Google a lot. I don't know. They do, but they do kill off a lot of stuff. Like, I don't know, but this one, I never even touched one. So I can't say like I have anything to say here other than probably good business decision, but it is, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like the broader question is always kind of going back to I think when they do this, it does kind of touch GCP Halo a little bit, right? Where it's like, they seem committed to GCP. I feel like it is not going anywhere. I believe that, but I do think when they do this, it's kind of just like it just opens a wound, right? People kind of ask over and over, like, are you really like your advertising business is so strong? Like, will any other market ever really interest you, right? And I guess it's just like it's I don't know. It's just a constant like refrain with them. So we'll see. I think Google's in good shape. I think GCP's in good shape, but
I think Chromebooks will live on. I think it's not going to come. It's kind of like Microsoft made their laptops work. Their
it's true.
but Google could not pull that one out either.
All right. Well, if you use the Pixelbook, I'm sorry. Hopefully, take a picture of it, send it to Matt Ray. He'll resurrect it for you. I'm sure he'll find some use for the monitor there. But a couple things, Matt. I just want to say on the follow up. We had some some nice follow up from last week. I'll just mention. So I mentioned the IKEA bag that was like $4.95. I think it's a good deal. It turns out there's like I don't know how to say it. I think Balenciaga. They sell a similar bag for over $2,000. Someone pointed that out, so I was like, "Wow!" So that's very funny. There's an article.
Could
Go ahead.
you send it as your check-in luggage?
I don't know. For $2,000, I think that it's like luggage that goes inside of luggage. But like, I don't know. I don't ever seen that. So there's a funny article about that. You can read in the nonsense. Also, we talked a little bit about floppy disk. Turns out there's one person still not making them. I guess making floppy disks, no one really makes them, but there's one person that has if you will, a very large supply, floppydisks.com. And there's actually an excellent article. I thought it was really fun to like listen to
a good article.
How the person got into the business. And, we always, and as many people pointed out, this person should definitely be a keynote at Legacy Conf, right? They've done everything right. They are checking out. So thanks for sending those things in. If you want to share something that you've seen relevant to the show or something we talked about, go to the Slack, join our Slack. And you can put it in there, and people put in funny links all the time, interesting links, knowledgeable links. So it's a good community, something you can definitely try out. Now, as far as conferences, Matt, you're actually the one going to the most conferences here. So why don't you tell us where you're going to be in the next few weeks?
Well, this week I'm at my company's offsite, so it's not exactly a public conference, but I'm going to be presenting for Sydney Cloud FinOps meetup. That's going to be online next month, giving a talk about Kubernetes and cost management. So stay tuned for that. And thanks to the CNCF, I will be attending KubeCon North America in Detroit next month. So October 24th through 28th in Detroit. I will see you there. Maybe we can do a software defined talk, happy hour meetup kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I know Brian over at the Cloudcast, he's going to be there as well. So maybe you and Brian can get together. We can have like a little podcast meetup. People that want to talk about technical podcasts, college football, and weird uses of Raspberry Pis. That would be the people that are invited to that meetup.
That is our Venn diagram.
That's exactly who we're looking for. And then, of course, if Cote were here, he would tell you go to the Spring One platform. It's December 6th through 8th. You probably, if you emailed Cote, but you could probably figure out some way to like be there, do some type of presentation. I think he's on the super secret committee that's figuring it out. So he'll want to see you there. And then, of course, our friends at that conference, still kind of far away, January 16th through 19th, but they'll be back in Texas. And so if you will want to become a counselor, which is a way to speak at that conference, go register and submit something. I'm sure they'll be interested in having you there. Also, always want to talk about stickers. So if you would like a sticker, all you have to do is send your email, send me an email with your address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. I sent stickers to Carson in Minnesota and Kevin in Omaha this week. So just send me an email with your address and I will send you one as well. One other final piece of listener feedback. I did, Matt, for you. We checked in last week. Patrick, he was the one that set up the bird listening thing. He said he really enjoyed it. And I did ask if he uses a trackball, because if he uses a trackball, I would have been like, that would have been perfect. But he did it. Unfortunately, he's not doing it. But he's one of your people. He's one of your bird people.
Enjoying the BirdNet pie. It's cool.
All right, Matt. So having said all that this week, what's your recommendation?
So my recommendation, I've got a movie and a TV series. The movie was it came out, oh, I don't know, 15 years ago, something like that. It's called Control. It's the story of Joy Division, the singer Ian Curtis, and just kind of it's if you like Joy Division, it's worth watching. If you don't watch it. uh, because it's directed by Anton Corbijn, who's known as a photographer. So it's at times I was kind of like, this is a little excessive, but I do like Joy Division, so dig that one up if you haven't seen it. And then the TV series, I recently finished my 3 months of HBO. Time to switch services. Wait for
Right.
the
Switch
shows
to
to
the
catch
next
back up.
trial. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, my wife got a new iPhone, so we got 3 months of Apple TV coming up. Um, but yeah, we watched a series called The Other Two, which is it's pretty funny. It's Molly Shannon as the mother of this 13-year-old who becomes a teen sensation, and how his older two siblings deal with that as becoming part of their younger siblings' entourage. It's quite funny. So check that one out.
All right. I like both those recommendations. All right. Well, as I recommended many, many times on the show, I would like to hear your take on Severance. So now you have Apple TV Plus. Make sure to I think
Right.
it's
Got maybe when
I
I
think
get
it's
back. Yeah.
yeah, it's like 7 episodes or something. So it's good though. I think it's good. And you can give us your official recommendation. All right, Matt. Well, as you know, Matt, it's football season here, and by that I mean American football season. So, of course, the sports channel in the Software Defined Talk Slack has been very active with all kinds of funny observations. For those that play fantasy football, I'll just give you a very quick explanation. If for those outside the United States, this is where you pick players on different teams and they become your virtual team in football. Then you play other people. So probably sounds ridiculous. It's extremely fun. At least it is for me. So I have been using a bunch of different sites, but this year I tried out RotoWire. And so it's basically, and I think they have, if you will, kind of improved a lot of the usability around seeing the information, figuring out which players you may want to put on your team, and making it really, really simple to kind of, if you will, import leagues and look at it. So it reminded me a lot of systems management, right? A lot of tools come with their own, if you will, management tools, but they're very hard to use. And then a systems management vendor comes along and like makes it a
Is
little
there
bit more
CSV
usable.
export?
Well, they have the ability to import from Yahoo and from all the major fantasy sites. So you just basically put in your credentials and you import your whole team, and then boom,
Nice.
you can see all the analytics. And so it reminded me a lot of the things we talk about here. Like there's like a collector, you pull the data in, and then you have access to all the other reporting tools. So kudos to RotoWire, because I think they've actually spent some time, and you can tell somebody that really loves fantasy football has been like, oh no, this is the way you should look at all the players, the rankings, and kind of like make your own decisions. So I always like it. I always like when I see kind of, if you will, good usability. And by that, I mean just like really informationally dense screens that really let you see all the things you want. So for the 5 people that on here that actually like fantasy football and probably care about this, if you are, check out RotoWire and subscribe, and hopefully you'll win all your fantasy leagues and pay for the subscription, and of course, most importantly, you'll be able to do the trash talking to all of your friends. So check out RotoWire. All right, with that, we really appreciate Matt Ray getting on here. He's playing a little hurt today, a little sickness, but he made it through like a star. I never had a doubt. But if you would like to see the show notes from this, go to softwaredefinedtalk.com. This episode is 377, so softwaredefinedtalk.com/377. And of course, there you can subscribe to all of our streaming channels. We do stream this every week. We have a great newsletter. We've got a great Slack community, and all kinds of things you can do there. So check it out. And with that, we'll talk to you next time.
Goodbye.
All right, Matt. Outstanding. You did a fantastic job. Thanks for hanging in with the coughing. And so
That was 7. It was like nonstop cough drops.
that's
I
good.
like
You
to
did
change
it.
it up. I
You
go
did it,
from the
man.
eucalyptus to the wild cherry, back and forth.
I like it. I like it. All right. Well, unfortunately, I have to run
Okay.
to some other work stuff. So thanks for getting on. We'll talk next
Yeah.
week. Thanks for all the streamers. Sorry we had no time to chat today. We will definitely talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye.